Hello, everybody out there. It's Crystal, or nobody. Nobody special. Nobody important. No race. I'm just nobody. But I got a little bit of something to say, just like everybody else does. Now, here we go. We've got the whataboutism going on Jacob Blake. And we've got the whataboutism going on with the shooter during the protest who killed two and wounded a third one. And that started going on the day after he did this. So, if you're one of these people who like the little bits of facts and are sick and tired of these people coming up with these whataboutisms, give you a real good way to shut them up. First, whataboutism. What about the fact that Jacob Blake is a criminal? And they show you this copy of a police record, of an arrest record. Let's go through the talking points on that. First of all, it just says Jacob S. Blake. And it recites 3 different crimes. 2 of them, I think, are assault. One is a sexual assault. All right. Now, we do know for a fact that his girlfriend or somebody, or not even for a fact, we know the reports are that his girlfriend called the police to say that he was on her property and that she had a restraining order on him. Okay, so we can figure that the assault is a possibility. But as far as the whole thing goes on all the arrests, and besides that, let's go on to this. I come from an abused background, and my husband was one of them who was abused. And to get a restraining order against my husband, all I needed to do was go into court and show probable cause on why I needed one. That didn't even have to have any criminal record for it on, anything. All I needed to do is show that I had probable cause, that I feared for myself, to be able to get that restraining order. I know somebody else that the only thing that happened was her ex-husband would come to the house and do the lawn and stuff, and she didn't like it, and so she got a restraining order on him. So that's number 1. Number 2, the name on the arrest record says Jacob S. Blake. And Jacob S. Blake, that was shot 7 times, he's a junior. And if that's his legal name, it would also have junior on it. That's number 2. Number 3, we do not know how many Jacob S. Blakes live in that county that could be having legal problems. Number 4, that is an arrest record. That is not a court record. That is not an indictment record. That is not a sentencing record. It is an arrest record. That means somebody was arrested for something. It does not clearly say whether or not that person was guilty of what they did. So there's your first talking point. Next thing they're saying is he had a gun, or not a gun, but a knife in the truck. There is no proof that he was going after that knife. There is no, they found a knife in the truck. They don't say where they found it or if there was a possibility he was going for it. One report said it was in the door, and you could clearly see that Jacob was not reaching for the door. He was going in towards the seat. And the seat is not the door. And he got shot 7 times in the back. Next thing is when he got shot, that he was standing in the car One of this man's children was sitting right across from where he was at. Okay? So if one of those bullets had passed through his body, it would have hit one of those children. So there's another talking point. And he was shot at point blank range. Okay? So there's a few of your talking points there. Now, as far as this shooter during the riots, they are now saying that he did it because the guy he shot used the word nigger. First of all, if you take a look at all the reports, the shooter was against Black Lives Matter. So I'm not even going to go with that nigger part. But on top of that, he shoots a man because the man uses the word nigger. And these guys are all up in arms and going, whataboutism? But and the person who said that to me is the exact same person who weeks earlier, when a black man punched a white man for calling him directly a nigger, they were up in arms. Oh, he shouldn't have punched him, he shouldn't have punched him. That's bullshit. So when somebody comes back and gives you that, well, he called him a nigger, you just say, well, what about the time that the black man punched the white man for calling him a nigger? And you were all up in arms about that one. You had no problem with it, saying it was wrong for the black man to punch the white man. So there's one of those. Now here's some facts about this kid. He is a Trump supporter. He was at a Trump rally, front row, in January. He is a supporter of the officers. The officers did say they appreciated him out there. He was up talking to the officers, and the officers did not shoo him away. In fact, they gave him water, although other citizens tried to come up to the trucks, and the officers told them, the citizens, to get away. And they clearly said citizens. Okay? He shot the first man at the gas station. In fact, he ran after him and shot him right in the head. The second man he shot was when they were trying to tackle him down to stop him. And he crumbled down on the ground. And that was almost point blank in itself. And the third man he shot the same way when he was shooting wildly after that. Luckily, he was not in a residential area that if somebody could have been in their house and end up with a bullet going through their house. At least from what I could see, it wasn't residential. The officers then passed him by. Everybody was out hollering, he's the shooter, he's the shooter, and the officers did nothing. So there's all of that put up in a pile. And the other thing is that he came to that rally or to that protest with his mother, who was also heavily armed. They showed a picture of his mother from her Facebook page or her social media page, and they showed a picture of her in the crowd of militia people holding her gun. So he did not leave and go drive home because he had to wait for his mother. And his mother was nowhere around when he left from where the cops were. So my guess is he went, sat down in his car, and waited until his mother came, whenever that was, however long that took. So it wasn't a simple thing of he hopped hopped in his car and drove home. No, he hopped in his car and waited for mommy to get there. Or he spent the time to go search for his mom throughout the town. Lord knows where she was, because these people were all over the place out there. So we do not know where she was. So there is a potential that after these officers passed him by while people were screaming that he was the shooter, that he could have been walking around the town for a half an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. Don't know. Have no clue. Have no clue. Absolutely no clue. And then just decided when he got to his own town, hoping that he would not be brought back. The other thing is I'm hearing that the only charges the man has gotten is attempted murder. And I don't understand that. He did murder 2 people. And he attempted to murder 1. So, what is that about? The last thing is Jacob Blake is sitting in the hospital paralyzed from his waist down. There's no way he is going to get up and leave that hospital. No fucking way. And I'm pretty sure his family is not going to take him out of that hospital in the condition he is in, risking his life. But officers have him cuffed to the bed. Totally ridiculous. He wakes up and is wondering why he is cuffed to the bed. He remembers 5 of the shots. 2 of the shots he don't remember. So apparently he was shot twice after he was rendered incapable of doing anything. So there's all of that. The one person that came across to me with the arrest record thing shut up after I pointed out the points on that one. And the other person that come up with the false thing about him calling him a nigger shut up after 1, I told them, show me the proof, and 2, and that's why the arrest record came across, because they couldn't come up with proof of him being called, the word being nigger being used around him. So those are all the little points there. I've pretty much so am to the point that I can't stand this shit anymore. And I don't know if you're there too. And if you are, I want you to think about something. Even when Obama was in office, no matter how good or bad you think he was, things didn't get this bad. Trump hasn't said anything whatsoever so far about Jacob Blake's shooting. Nor has he said anything about the man who shot 2 people and killed them and wounded a 3rd. We're sick of this. And we're sick of Trump's supporters too, and all their whataboutism. And it's time we start fighting back with the facts. You shut them up when you come up with the facts. Because when they come back against that, like the nigger thing, they come back, when you come back with the facts on the nigger thing, if they come back at you, you clearly show what bigots they are. When you point out the facts about the arrest record, you clearly show how biased they are. When you come back with the facts of what the video showed about Jacob Blake, that he was not reaching into his door. Because if he would have been reaching into his door, let's just face it. Okay, he opens up the door. The door is behind him. He was facing towards the seat. If that is where the cops found that knife, which is no guarantee because we know how the cops twist crap. If that is where the cops found that knife, is in that door, then why was Jacob facing towards the seat when they shot him in the back 7 times point blank? Why? I don't understand that. The facts don't match up. And how many times have we heard an officer say that some black guy was doing something he was not doing, only to find out later when the video came out that no, they weren't doing that. The officer shot him and wrote up a false report. And I'm believing this is the same thing. The officer shot Blake and wrote up a false report to justify the shooting. And it's got to stop. Now, everybody's asking how we're going to stop this. First of all, we've got to get Trump out of office. We've got to get him out. Secondly, we the people can change this. We need to change who we vote in as sheriff. We need to be paying closer attention to their records and their histories. They're easily available, especially with the internet nowadays, to look up. Before you vote for somebody, you need to start looking up who they really are, what their past history is. Type in their name and find out if there's any news reports of past problems with them or any other kind of report. Look them up. Stop just going by them standing up on that stump doing their stump speech and thinking, oh, this guy's a good guy. Remember, people lie to get power. Democrat and Republican. Okay? It's just sad nowadays that the Republicans are doing most of the lying. And they always have, even when Obama was in office. Democrats did some lying. I am not going to sugarcoat it. But it was nothing half as close as what the Republicans doing and were doing. I mean, back in Obama's time, they shut down the government, went over and were harassing basically some vets and closing down the veteran memorial, and they blamed it on Obama. They blamed it all on Obama. They blamed their harassment of these vets, and they blamed the shutdown on Obama when it was them that did it. So, really, come on. Let's look at the history and look at the facts. When you're going to vote for a politician, you need to look into their past history and what their history of what they voted for is. And if you're voting for somebody that's never been a politician, you need to be looking up and seeing if there's any kind of news report on them. Now, you take a look at Trump before he got elected. If people would have just bothered to look him up. I knew about the court hearing against him for discrimination. I knew about his divorces. I knew about his bankruptcies because I grew up with these things and hearing them on the news since I was a 7-year-old kid. I even remember the time when he was standing there talking about, I can't even remember the name of the project because I was quite young, and he was standing in front of a building and there was some trucks driving back and forth, and when you looked in the truck, there was nothing in the trucks, in the back of these big trucks. Usually on a construction site, you see a truck driving back and forth, there's piles of dirt in them. They leave with piles of dirt and they come back with empty trucks. Well, these were going in the direction of leaving, whichever direction that would have been. You couldn't tell because they were just going back and forth. And they never had any dirt in them. That's number one. Number two, you looked into the driver's seat because you could see the driver's seat. And it was the same driver most of the time. So you knew that they were just driving around out there. Really? You know, we thought then was they're doing this construction. What are they doing? They're driving trucks around. Are they just having fun? We didn't know. We were kids. But you refused to look that up. Now, these people who are still massively supporting Trump don't realize they're pro-lifers, don't realize that Trump himself was for abortion before he ran for president. He only changed his mind on abortion to get elected. Plain and simple. He was all for it until then. And I bet you 10 to 1 if you got the wrong woman pregnant today, he'd be sending her off to Sweden to go get abortion. And you'd never know about it. And he'd be paying her to keep her mouth shut. Now, another thing I want you to think about. Trump gets a second term. Pretty much so the chains are going to be off on him. He will no longer have to worry about the votes from the people. He will do whatever he has to suck up to the Republicans so that they keep on doing what he wants them to. And piece by piece, he will dismantle our Constitution and make it irrelevant. He will find some way. I have no doubt of that. And he will find some way to make it so it gets rid of term limits for the president. He's already mentioned that once. And so have the Republicans. Even if all the more he can do is get rid of the presidential term limit somehow, you see what he's already doing as far as voting goes. As long as he has a Senate that is controlled by the Republican, he is not going to be removed from office. He will be able to do whatever he wants as far as election goes. Right now, he can't do that because he needs the support of his voters. But in his second term, All holds bar. Gone. So I want you to think about that. When Trump no longer has to worry about the citizens of the United States of America to re-elect him, what kind of thing can he do? Ask yourself, why was a term limit for presidents put in? It wasn't in the Constitution in the first place. So reasonably, I could see the Senate allowing him to get rid of that term limit once again. Because they would be looking at it as in the future, if he gets rid of the term limit, that means when they get elected again into office as president, they can run as many times as they want. And as long as the people are willing to elect him, they can stay president. And as long as they can keep control of the Senate, when there's a Republican person in the office, nothing gets done. If they get control of the House, nothing gets done. Just like with Obama. It's the way it goes. They ended up with control of the House and the Senate, and nothing got done in a substantive way. As far as Obamacare happened, it happened within the first 2 years of his term. And really, because of illnesses and other things, the majority in the House was only there, I think it was something like 6 months. So they got that done in 6 months. And in that 6 months, there was a fight about getting that done as well with the Democrats. So, because there were certain things the Democrat didn't want. So they weren't going to pass it unless the bill was reworked. And these were the things that in the end weakened the bill. If they would have left the bill alone, it would have been a much stronger bill. So they're the ones who weakened it in the first place. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to say that Democrats did all right and the Republicans did all wrong. I'm going to tell you exactly what the Democrats were doing and exactly what the Republicans were doing that I seen. And that should be enough. So now you got your talking points, and now you got how I feel about this election and stuff. So we need to get rid of it. We, the people, need to start voting better people in, and we need to start researching the people that we are going to be voting for. All in all, Biden is a human being. He has made his mistakes. But mostly, he hasn't made any big mistakes. The thing about his son, he didn't even know his son was working. He was dealing with the fact of his one son dying. His other son was healthy and fine. He didn't have to worry about him. He had to worry about the one that was dying. And his other son went and got a job over in Russia. There was a prosecutor over there that not only did America want him gone, Europe wanted him gone. The EU altogether wanted him gone because this man was not prosecuting places like where Hunter worked. They weren't prosecuting him. So they wanted him gone so that corrupt businesses would be looked into. So in Biden getting rid of that prosecutor, he was guaranteeing the place his son was employed in was going to be looked at for corruption. And it was. And was found to be corrupt. And the corruption was during the time Hunter was not there. So let's even go there. Okay? That was in Ukraine. Uh, as far as that criminal bill that Hillary touted and Joe voted for, let's put that in context. When they made that bill, they didn't expect it to be weaponized to be used against one racial group or another. They expected it to tamp down criminal activity between all races. What happened with that bill, as far as it being weaponized to unfairly persecute black people, was not Congress's fault for voting the bill into action. That was the fault of corrupt and bad police officers, bigoted, corrupt, bad police officers, bigoted and corrupt judges, bigoted and corrupt lawyers. That was not the fault of the bill itself. The bill would have worked better if there were guidelines for sentences and that these sentences had to be hard-lined. If you were going to get that tough on the law, then it was hard-lined. If somebody got picked up for drugs one time, you didn't get the privilege of slapping the white guy on the hand and imprisoning the black guy for 20 years for a joint. Because that's exactly what ended up happening. It was not the fault of the bill. That was the fault of the legal system. The thing is the bill did not give guidelines so that the legal system couldn't do that. Okay? And how many times have we passed bills that we first supported? I mean, how many people were supporting the Iraq war right after the planes went into the towers? We were pissed and we were out for blood. And y'all know it. Hell, we would have been happy if they just bombed that whole region back then. Because we were that pissed, justifiably. But now, in hindsight, we're all, so many of you out there are going, yeah, but he voted for the war, but he voted for the war. In actual fact, they didn't vote for the war. They voted to kind of take the reins off of Bush. And Bush went against what he said he was going to do and went to war. That's basically what happened. Okay? So let's lay that out on the table. And on top of that, during the time, Trump was for the war. And it's just like his normal. He was for, he was against. He was for, he was against. Trump has always been a very corrupt, very, he's always paid his way out of trouble. Always. He's never really had to face a court and a jury and have a court indictment put against him where he was determined guilty by the courts, because he's always been able to pay his way out of it. So, I mean, be perfectly honest, he's never faced justice. And I did get Mary Trump's book, and most of it in there I can fully see, because it's what he is today, what he was as a child. He was very bombastic. very cruel to his younger brother, very, very cruel to his younger brother, very cruel to his older brother, which I would not doubt contributed to Freddie's drinking problem. But he became what his father wanted to avoid what his father had done to his older brother. That doesn't make what he did right, but that explains why he's so screwed up in his head. And along the way, his daddy started calling him biblical reference, and he let it get to his head. I can't even remember what the biblical reference was, but it was basically kind of like, I'm the great God type of a thing. And it went to his head. And that's why he was so easily able to say that he was the second coming. Because his dad had already stuck that notion in his head since he was a small child. So let's get out there in November. And no, I'm not yelling this time because I really want you guys to listen. Let's get out there in November and let's vote Trump out of office. And as the party with the most registered voters over any other party, but the smallest amount of people who are voting, come on. Let's show America who we are and what we are. Stop this perfect candidate bullshit, because you're never going to find them. Stop it. The whole trick of it is to find the best candidate and vote them in, forcing the next candidates who come along to be better than the last one. That's the trick. It's not to find the perfect candidate in the first place. It's to find the best candidate, forcing the next candidate to be better. And as we get better candidates, we get crap done. And we get a better nation. And maybe some of this crap that's going on today will stop. And maybe then, when these bigots pull the crap they're pulling, there'll actually be justice done. Isn't that what you want? So let's stop it. Let's show them what a blue biblical flood is. Each and every one of us, let's get out there. Because that's the only way we're going to change things. You need to get out there, and not only for the presidents, you need to do it for House, for Senate, for town, for whatever, for state. You need to be voting for your mayors, for your police chiefs, for your whatever there is out there that you can vote for that has an opportunity for change. Because if you're not voting for change, you're asking to keep on going the route we're going, and worse. So let's vote for change. And let's vote for good change. Okay? And if you're not going to vote, then don't complain about what's going on in the government. You lost that right. You become a Trumperster. And I'm sorry, Trumpsters are a bunch of bigots. Each and every one of them. I'm not making any more distinctions between them. They're bigots. Plain and simple. Every single solitary one of them. Whether you're a 14-year-old kid out there waving your flag going Trump, 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 or you're a 50-year-old kid waving your flag saying Trump, 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 Trump. You're all bigots. Every single one of you. If you're willing to condone the crap Trump is pulling, if you're willing to back it and support it, and say you want Trump to be your voice in this nation, you're a bigot. You're corrupt too. And you're greedy. And you will not change my mind in any way, shape, or form. As long as you're standing up hollering Trump, 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 Trump. That's exactly what you are. Because that's exactly what you're voting for to represent you. He's not a good president. He has done nothing for you. He didn't even try to stop a virus that are killing your people. It's killing our people too. It's killing everybody. But apparently, that isn't enough for you to care about. You're too stuck in your own head. You're too stuck in QAnon and conspiracy theories that have no basis in fact, and too unwilling to look up fact. No matter what fact-checking site. I've showed you people stuff from conservative fact-checking sites to liberal fact-checking sites, and in between the two of them. And y'all say the same thing. Oh, they're leaning liberal. No, they're not. You're just refusing to look at the facts. Because the facts are not saying what you like. They don't always say what I like either. But I don't ignore them. I pay attention to them. Because the facts are what's going to get us out of this mess. The facts are what get you out of abuse when you're in an abusive relationship. When you're willing to wake up and face the facts and get out of it. The facts are what get you into a job. When you're willing to wake up and grow up enough to do what's needed to do that job. Now the facts is what's going to straighten this nation out. And if you're going to stand around hollering about what somebody else does with their body because of some medical condition, then I think it's time we start hollering that we take away Viagra. That we start hollering for vasectomies for any man or child or boy that has any more than 3 children without being married. Because, I mean, face it, they're the ones getting these girls pregnant and walking away. And we start forcing people, these people who are hollering about abortion, to adopt these children who are born with horrific birth defects that will leave that child forever in pain. Forever dependent on somebody else to care for them. I'm not talking Down syndrome. Some women don't wake up at 7, 8 months pregnant and all of a sudden think they want an abortion. It's not the way it works. And if you think it is, you've never been a mother. And you've never had to make a difficult decision. I have. I didn't get an abortion. But I put my life and my child's life at risk to give him a chance. But that was my choice. And I knew if my child died, I would be living the rest of my life in a mental institution. But that was my choice. I knew that if I died when I gave birth, that my child would have to be raised up in the system because my husband's family wouldn't have stepped up, and my family I did not have in my life. But I took that chance. But that was my choice. That was between me and my doctor. I was 7 months pregnant and had to make choices. And I made them. And I've got my son in this world. But that was my choice. And nobody else had a right to tell me what my choice should be. And the same thing goes for you people protesting against women who are having abortions because they're given no other choice. Or because they're given a choice between their life and their child's life. When your daughter gets old enough to get pregnant, and she has a difficult pregnancy, where that baby can possibly kill your daughter, then I want to see you say you're against abortions. And be willing to watch your daughter die in childbirth. Don't say it can't happen to you, because it can. And then on top of that, you go and picket the fertility clinics, because they do more abortions than any abortion clinic. Because they implant more than one egg into a mother's womb. And if the mother-to-be wants only one child, they do a procedure that's called a fetal material removal. And basically what it is they take out the unwanted babies after the first trimester, because it is too dangerous to do it before the first trimester. So when that woman is 4, 5, 6, and even 7 months pregnant, they're in there removing babies. Because they have to wait until it's stable enough for the baby they want to survive will survive. And sometimes that takes us up until 7 months. So now you go out there and you picket those fertility centers. You ask them to close down too, and quit being a hypocrite. Let's get Trump out of office. Let's stop this bigotry. Let's let people have their own religion, whether they want a religion or not. Let's stop these radical Christians out there that want to play ISIS and force others to follow their religion. It's not their right. And if you let them do it, you keep on letting somebody else tell you what your religion is and what your religion should be, and that everybody else follow it. One day somebody is going to get into office that follows your religion in a way you don't like. And you're going to be forced to follow that. Ask yourself, will you really like it? You're a bigot. Plain and simple. Own it. You're a crook. Plain and simple. Own it. You're greedy. Plain and simple. Own it. You're a communist in your behavior. Plain and simple. Own it. You're no better than ISIS in your religion. Plain and simple. Own it. You don't like it? Then do better. Do better than what you're doing. Because you're not going to hell for me. And you're not going to hell for anybody else. So get out of their life and mind your own.